from our office. And our office is located in Pasila, Helsinki. So I'm here at the moment too. I wrote here the thank you for not filming or saving this presentation, but this of course will stay in Facebook, so you might come back to this later or watch this later. So I would like to say that it's very important that you understand that some things that I'm going to tell you today might change. So it is important that you come back to these matters later and clarify the current information, that's because something might have been changed. But of course, after this my presentation, I hope that you will ask if there's anything unclear, and you are also welcome to make an appointment with me. I will share my contact details at the end. So Interpedia is, as Suneina said, an expert organization, and we are working for the rights for the children and child protection. And this year is our 50th anniversary, so we are turning 50 years this year, and we have a year of celebration. Interpedia was founded in 1974 by families who had adopted into country. And at first we were like a peer support NGO, but later when the first adoption law came into force, we started our work as official adoption service provider, and that was 1985. Before that, we were more likely assisting with the adoption processes, also from India. So India have been our cooperation country for decades. We were first named as Hjälp till nödställda barn, which is Swedish name, because at first all the families who founded Interpedia were Swedish, actually. But now we are more Finnish than Swedish, but we also work in Swedish language. But what else we do than adoption, and what we do in 2024, we of course provide this inter-country adoption service from India, Thailand, South Africa, Colombia, and Bulgaria. And we also have this post-adoption service, which means that adoptees, younger or older adults, children, can come back to us and talk with us, discuss with us about their adoption history, their background. We can read together the documents and have understanding towards the adoption, what it is and what happens with that, and what has happened to adoptees maybe when they were born and so on. We also do development cooperation. We have projects in Nepal and Ethiopia, and sponsorship programs in 7 different countries. And we provide global education work, mostly learning materials for different ages. You are very welcome to get to know to these through our web pages. But okay, what is adoption? I would like to start with the fact that the adoption is always work for the best interest of the child. So the main thing that matters is the best interest of the child. And it's impossible to define what it means, because the best interest of the child is always individual, because we people are individuals. But when we are talking about adoption, the best interest of the child is based on the child's right to grow in family environments, and more detailed way, I would say that in permanent family environments. So the permanency is actually the best interest of the child. It is thought that if the child have a family, then it's possible for him or her to grow surrounded by love and happiness, and with her or his own family that won't change. And the priority is always to find parents for the child, not a child to the parents. But of course, the motivation to adopt is usually the willing to have a child, to have a family. And that is very good motivation. I think it's actually the best one, but it's very important to understand that it's always about the child, and the motivation to have a child is secondary thing and issue. And behind every adopted child, there is at least one human tragedy. And I know that it sounds a bit harsh, but it's the truth. These adopted children have lost their birth parents. They have lost their biological family, maybe the extended family too. So they have interruptions in their attachment relationships, and that's always a tragedy, and that always have an effect to a child. So that's something that you should understand from the beginning, that these children might have some behavioral issues that are related to their history to be adopted. Adoption in Finland. I will today tell you how these processes start, and how you should proceed if you want to adopt within Finland domestic way, and how to proceed when adopting in the country. Both processes start with adoption counseling, which is actually counseling and preparation, and it's always given by a social worker. And if you want to start an adoption process, you always need to take contact to the local municipality and ask who would be the social worker who would give the counseling phase to you. And some municipalities provide this service by themselves, and quite many municipalities buy this service from the Save the Children. For example, if you live in Helsinki, you will contact City of Helsinki, but if you live in Espoo, you will contact Save the Children. And if you have any doubts that who would be the right, or which would be the right section to take contact, you can ask me, you can ask from your municipality, you can Google it. I guess that you will find the answer, but you are always welcome to contact me too. This adoption counseling comes from the law. It's obligatory and it's free of charge, so it's free service. And it ends with a home study report, but it lasts for a year, approximately a year. And I know that it might sound a long time, but it's actually a very important time to deepen your thoughts about adoption. Even consider more deeply, are you ready for the adoption process? When you start the counseling phase, you won't need to know for sure that are you going to finalize the counseling or not. And the meetings, they are not like happening every week or every month either. So there might be 1 to 2 months between the meetings with the social worker. And during these months, you have time to reflect more deeply the themes that the social worker is discussing with you, and she will give you some homework too that you will write, and you will reflect more deeply. And after the counseling phase, if you are adopting within Finland, if you are interested domestic adoptions in Finland, then you will apply for the adoption permit through the social worker. But if you are interested to adopt through inter-country adoption, then you need to choose a service provider. And in Finland, there's 2 service providers, Interpedia, I mean us, and then Save the Children. And then also service fees comes to take a part. I'm showing you this timeline of our adoption process because I think that this also sheds light on how the process is going for a whole. So there you can see the first part. It's the adoption counseling, which I was talking and then home study report, which is written by the social worker. And this document is actually the most important document in Finland to the adoption board, who will give you the adoption permit. And it's very important, even the most important document when you are gathering your application to, for example, to India. But after the home study report is ready, or getting or nearly ready, you need to register to service providers if you are interested about the inter-country adoptions. And then the fourth part is apply for the adoption permission. And then the fifth part, after getting the permission from the adoption board, which is the central authority of all the adoptions in Finland, then you have to select the country that you are going to send your application. And if you are staying in Finland and want to adopt through domestic way, then you just stay with your counseling office. And after you have sent your application, starts the waiting period. And the adoption permit needs to be renewed in every 2 years. And most of our families or our clients will renew their adoption permit even once. So at least once, because these processes takes time. So 2 years isn't actually that long time in this process. And after the waiting time comes the most wanted part, and that's of course the child proposal, and after that the adoption trip. And when you are living with the child, then starts the follow-up phase. Requirements for the adoption families or adopters comes from laws and regulations. So when you are living in Finland, you need to follow the Finnish regulations and laws too, because the actual place of residence determines the process. That if you are living in Finland, and it doesn't matter do you have the citizenship of Finland or not, the adoption process will proceed by Finnish system. And the Finnish Adoption Act says that the prospective adoptive parents may be 25 to 50 years old, and the 50 years is the maximum age. And after that, it's not possible to start the process. And it's always that if you are a couple and the other one of you is 35 and the other one is 53, then I have to say that it's not possible for you. So the 50 is still the maximum age. And the maximum age difference between the child and the parent is 45 years. So that means that if you are 46, the child can be 1 year old minimum, and if you are 46, then 47, then 2 years, 48, then 3 years. So you understand the system. But if there is already children in your families, the adopted child is always the youngest child of the family, and the adopted child needs to be at least a year younger than the child who already is in the family. So that means that the age can be defined from the both endings, like from the so the adoption permit, what you will get from the adoption board, will define the possible age for the child. You can apply adoption as a married couple or single applicants. But if you are cohabitant, then you need to understand that for example, India is not accepting that kind of applications. You have to be married. But then that it's not this simple. Different countries have own laws and regulations, and we have to comply these laws and regulations as a whole. So like we have to pay attention to Finnish law, but of course to Indian regulations, to like it's like a compilation of all of this. And the different laws may differ from the Finnish system, and we are obligated to follow all the rules, that there's no exceptions possible to do. And this is something that I already said in the beginning, that this legislation and the processes might change. So it's always important to ask, what is the current situation? But when you are in the process, one very important thing is the image that you have of the child in your mind, like wishes for the child. What you are actually wishing for. This is very important and very crucial part of the process. And this is something that you are going through with your social worker in the counseling. And I know that these images, these wishes might change during the process, and that's totally okay. And it's very natural that the thoughts will expand, like your thoughts will be more flexible than they were when you are understanding more of the context, that what kind of children actually are free for adoption. But very important questions are that, are you wishing for one child? Are you wishing for siblings? How old the child can be? What are your thoughts? What's the reality? How old am I? What kind of child is possible for me? And the health and the social background of the child. Quite many children are special need children. So am I ready for the special needs actually? And how flexible I can be. But these wishes are written in the home study report, and the social worker will give her recommendations, but her recommendations are not like I mean that you always talk about them together. So you will, that's like a shared idea of the child, that who would be or what kind of child would be placed into your family. So it's not like a social worker's own independent idea that you don't have anything to say to. But then adopting from India. So I have the privilege to work with India, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really very much waiting for my next travel there too. We are working with Central Authority, CARA. I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar with it too. So it's a Central Adoption Resource Authority. And we are following Juvenile Justice Act and adoption regulations, which changed in 2022. And I think the biggest change was that the confirmations of adoptions moved from the courts to magistrates, but Maharashtra stayed with the court system. But that's maybe the biggest change that happened. There's 2 adoption programs. I don't like the word normal program, because who is normal? Who can say that who is normal? But it's only the word that is used. And it means that the children who come through this normal program or normal category, they don't have this much big special need or health issues or issues with their backgrounds. But this normal category is only possible for domestic families. And you, as you are Indian families, you are counted as domestic families in India, even you are living abroad. So for you, this is possible, but to most of our families, it is not possible because of the very long waiting times. But I will tell you about the waiting times a little bit later. But there's also the special need program or category that is possible for foreign families too, but it's also possible for Indian families. And you don't actually have to choose between these two, that you can be active in both categories at the same time. So all the applications are uploaded to the portal called Carings. And this Caring is like the place where the children and the families meet. And for the normal category, the matchings are made by Kara. And the special need category, the matchings are made by Interpedia. So our adoption team is working with the children and families in the special need category. The children are all surrendered or abandoned, and there's a very clear process that these children go through before they are legally free for adoption, and they all need to be declared legally free for adoption. And one thing I would like to remind you that even you are Indian families, if you want to adopt from India and you are living in Finland, you need to do the adoption through a service provider. You are not allowed to contact Indian officers by yourself. Everything in this process, the whole communication need to go through us. And criteria for applicants when wanting to adopt from India, the marriage need to be at least 2 years. And you need to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially balanced, that your situation needs to be quite balanced in every way. But I wouldn't say that you need to be a super person, super families. Ordinary is enough, but you can't have any significant health issues or problems. And the age criteria are slightly different than in Finland, but we also need to follow the Finnish Adoption Act. So for India couple, they are defining it by this way, that couples joint age, if it is maximum 85 years, then you are able to adopt child under 2 years. Maximum 90 years, you are able to adopt child 2 to 4 years, and so on. You can see here, and single applicants, maximum 40 years, child under 2 years, maximum 45 years, child 2 to 4 years. And then there's said this, that couples joint age, if maximum 100 years, the child can be 4 years or older. And in India criteria, there is also this section for 110 years, but it's not possible when thinking Finnish law. So even there said that maximum 90 years and the child can be 2 to 4 years, or maximum 85 years and the child can be under 2 years. But if one of you is 48 and one of you is 35, then it's not possible to adopt a child under 2 years because of the Finnish law. And I know that this is a little bit complicated, but I'm very happy to have conversations later about this too. And then about the waiting times. After you have been registered to the carings, then we have to wait that Kara will accept you as an applicant family there. And then the waiting times for the child proposals are 2 to 3 years when hoping for a child who is under 4 years, and around 2 years when hoping for a child 4 to 6 years. And special needs programs waiting times vary a lot, and it depends on your readiness for the special needs, what kind of special needs you are open for, and so on. So it's impossible to say, but it's only, we have had these waiting times from only few months to 2 years, 3 years even, yeah. And after getting the child proposal starts the waiting for the adoption travel, and in India that's approximately 8 months, but that depends a lot on that state where the child is coming from, the children's home and the local officers and so on. I even think that you might be more familiar with these issues than me, that you know that there's a lot of differences between the states when this like a bureaucracy and so on. So in summary, in Finland, adoption process starts with adoption counseling given by a social worker of your own municipality. And every family needs to apply for the adoption permit from the Finnish Adoption Board, which is the central authority of Finnish of adoptions in Finland. And the service provider is always needed when adopting inter-country from India too. And we are a service provider, and we are the only service provider who is working with India in Finland. And the most important thing is that the best interest of the child is the guiding thing when adopting. I think that that's all that I have to say. I have said today, but I would also want to introduce here. I don't know. Do you see this? I'm pointing here. This Indian,
Yes.
beautiful Indian lady. She is Gireta Rajas, my dear colleague, living in Delhi, and she is part of our adoption team and very much involved with the adoption processes. So if you are wanting to adopt from India, you will get to know Gireta very well. I wouldn't manage without her, so I think that it's very important to introduce her too. And here are also our Colombian contact person and our another adoption coordinator, Marika Elmeranda, and that's me. But hey, thank you. I hope that this was helpful and clear enough.
Actually very helpful because then it's very important for us to know also how does this work. But thank you so much. Maybe a few questions that we had. Sunaina, is it okay if I take these questions?
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hey, just from my side, then I understand these waiting times and the counseling times, and then there is also a process after we adopt. So generally, how long is the total process that is there? It can vary between the waiting times, but then generally, how do you see these? Kind of a total waiting, total process, let's say.
Total process, if let's say that you want to adopt a child who is around 1 year old and from India. So when you start, it takes 1 year, maybe 1.5 year, the counseling and the adoption permits, then maybe 3 years in India, or 2.5 years in India waiting, 3, 4, I would say that 4 years before you have the child, at least 4 years maybe, but it varies, and then and the follow-up phase, it takes around 2 years, but you can of course live with your child at that point. You are living together and the social worker is writing follow-up reports.
Yeah, that's also good to understand, because then
it's very good question, and it's very good to understand that the process will continue even when you are with the child.
And I also just confirming, I understood from you that this adoption is possible for Indians living in Finland without a Finnish passport.
Yes, of course.
And then the related question that I had when you said domestic people, I understood these are Indians living in Finland, so considered as domestic. But what is the situations when they have a Finnish passport?
If you don't have the citizenship of India anymore, does that mean that you are like an NRI family, or?
Yes.
Yeah, then you are also counted as domestic family.
Still counted as domestic family.
Yeah.
Then maybe some questions from the audience that we have.
Yeah, so maybe I can
Yes.
So there are some questions from the audience as well. So first question is, do we need to choose adoption agency in India, or Interpedia will help choosing them, or have a database of agencies to choose from? So you already answered that, but still, if you want to add anything, Tina?
Yeah, so if you are living in Finland and you want to adopt from India, Interpedia is your only choice. So the choosing part is quite easy. So you need the agency, and we will be the agency.
How about the agency in India? You said that we already have a partner. Interpedia already has a partner.
Yeah. So you meant, no, we have our only partner is KARA, the central authority, but we work with there's over 400 children's homes that are working with Kara too. So it's like the child proposal might come from one of these. So we don't have any specific agencies that we are working with, that the proposal can come from any of those.
Okay. Okay. Okay, there's one more question, which is if we adopt from India, how does the residence permit works? Time for passport, documentation, etc. And I think this is in reference to the child once we have the match made. How does this process work for the child?
Yeah, so this is something that I don't actually have a clear answer when you are Indian families, because a child is traveling to Finland with Indian passport and it's applied in when the child is in India, and it's need to be applied before you come to Finland, and then the child comes with the residence permits. But this process is a little bit different that I'm very familiar, because we don't have actually many Indian families on our waiting lists, and we haven't had that many Indian families before. So that's something that we have to find out when the process is on that point. But all this official work and this documentation work is done after you have accepted the proposal and the central authority have given its approval and the adoption is confirmed. And I think that Indian families like to travel to India before everything is ready, but Finnish families go there only after every single document is ready, and that takes for a long time, maybe a few months.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that does answer the question, Tina. So, I mean, we have an estimate, but it's, I think, a little specific to how will it work for Indian families. But in any case, it does take a few months.
Yeah, and if you are like a couple that one of you is Finnish, then the child will get the Finnish citizenship through the adoption. So it's quite simple on that way. But then, because India is not accepting the double citizenship, then the child will lose the Indian citizenship. Or not all want to do it that way either. So it's always something that we need to consider and fix it individual way.
Right, right. That's true. And there's one confirmation question about the validity of the adoption. So is it valid across the world, or will this adoption be valid only for Finland?
I think that I don't understand truly the question. You mean valid, yeah, it's valid in everywhere. Yeah, after it's confirmed, then the child is like legally its family's child, like a biological child, and it's valid in everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I would think so, but
maybe that was the question.
Yeah. I think that was the question, but it's still good to
yeah,
get a
and
validation.
that's actually very basic and important thing, and the adoption is a legal process, and after the adoption is confirmed, the child will lose every connection to his or her biological family. And with intercountry adoption, the child of course loses also his or her cultural surrounding, her roots. So that's why the domestic families are always on the priority, because as you are Indian, you can keep up the Indian roots better than the Finnish families. Even I have to say that our families are very determined to keep the Indian culture in their lives too.
Right. I mean, child's needs are the foremost, so it's very nice to hear that.
Yeah.
And there's a question about the adoption within the family. Is it possible, and does it still require the same process and waiting period times as we have seen in the presentation?
You mean that you are living in Finland and want to adopt from India? yeah, within the family.
From the family in India.
Yeah. The adoption counseling is needed in that situation too, and it's very important to find out that does the child in India, does he or she need adoption to be protected? That you can't just adopt anyone, that the child need to go through its process there, that she or he will be declared free for adoption, and it always needs the central authority of adoption matters in India, that means Kara, and yes, and we are helping with that too. So, but first, but we can't help with the child's process in India. It needs to be declared at first, and after that, we can help with the process.
Right.
So the adopting from India to Finland, it needs to be the last option. Of course, sometimes it's better that if the officers in India come to conclusion that it's better the child to grow up in Finland in this specific family, then it's like that. But usually the intercountry adoption in any situation is the last option.
Okay. Okay, I'm checking if there are any other questions from the audience, but I don't see any at the moment.
Okay.
I think no more questions then.
And yes, remember that you can always contact me later on too. My contact details are there. So
Tina, I'm sure that you will be getting a lot of queries from the audience here, because we did hear a lot of questions regarding this topic and an interest to know more about it. So maybe we did not get enough more questions. Like, we did get a lot of questions, but but I think we will be getting more. So it's good that you have your contact details, including in the presentation. I think it will be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I also think you're doing a great job, Tina. I think this is fabulous, and just nice to know how much work is going behind it, the process, how much thorough it is. So I'm really thank you for this presentation and walking us through it.
Thank you for inviting me here today.
Good to have you here, and it's also nice that this mental part of it is also taken care in the whole process. So after adoption, also these kind of support that people are receiving, to just settle down and then go on. This is very nice to know that the support and hand holding is there.
Yeah. Okay, so have a nice evening, you all.
Thank you, Tina. You too. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.